Hello and thanks for joining me. You know, this past weekend was a first for me. I have my channel's a little over 2 years old, but I've never met a booktuber in person, another booktuber in person until this past weekend when I met not one, but two fellow booktubers in person at two different events. So I thought, you know, I would do a video to share that experience, as well as what would a video be without a few books to talk about. So I have a few books to talk about as well. But yeah, so on Saturday, February 10th, I met Peg, the book prize addict, in person. We had a late lunch together. She was in DC for various things, including the event that I will talk about next. And so we planned a late lunch and got together for a lunch, and we ended up having a wonderful discussion. It was great to get to know her, you know, on a one-to-one kind of basis and learn a little more about her and her life, as well as her reading and, you know, and her booktube experience. That was a lot of fun. So we had a good long chat over lunch. We did not take a video. So, you know, we were in a restaurant, so we did not do any filming. You know, if she ever comes back to DC, I think it'd be fun to do, maybe we'll do a video at some point together. But I do have a picture to prove that it happened. Here is me with Peg, the book prize addict, showing a book that she gifted me, which I have right here, which I'm also going to talk about. So yeah, Peg, the book prize addict. You know, when I met up with her, she is, she's kind of what I expected from her channel. You know, she's very personable. I was wondering if she would wear one of her signature necklaces, you know, and she did. And the next day, the next event we went to, she was wearing a different one. So, you know, I noticed that on her channel. If you watch her channel, she's always wearing very beautiful and elaborate necklaces. So thought that was cool. It was really super nice to meet her in person and hang out with her. But she ended up gifting me this book, Mystery Reader's Walking Guide to Washington, D.C. This is by Alzina Stone Dale, and Alzina Stone Dale won the Agatha Award in 1995. And so what this is different walking tours around Washington, D.C., which is where I live. Just gonna see which neighborhoods they have. They have the White House, the East Mall, the West Mall, Capitol Hill, DuPont Circle, Embassy Row, Foggy Bottom Walk, Georgetown Walk, and Arlington Cemetery. And just to give you an idea what this is about, each one of those walks contains information about the neighborhood, and then it will. And then, you know, various landmarks in the neighborhood, places to eat, hotels in the area, things like that. But then it will give you walking directions. As you're walking, it will then point you out to landmarks that appeared in various, you know, in various mystery novels of the past. Looks like mostly mid to late 20th century novels. But just as an example, on the Georgetown Walk, it says, turn right to walk down Wisconsin to tiny Blues Alley at rear 1073 Wisconsin Avenue, where you will find a small jazz supper club which claims to be the oldest in the nation. Internationally famous, the club is located in an 18th century coach house, and its brick walls are hung with photographs of the great jazz greats who have performed there, from Ella Fitzgerald to Dizzy Gillespie to present-day Wynton Marsalis. So, and then it goes on, it'll say, in a similar coach house south of M Street, that alcoholic and eccentric Lavinia Fawcett lived and wrote blackmail notes in Leslie Ford's The Simple Way of Poison from 1937. In Margaret Truman's Murder on Capitol Hill from 1981, Lydia James and her music teacher, cum lover, Clarence Foster Sims, went to Blues Alley after a concert at the New Caldwell Performing Arts Center because neither of them particularly liked Haydn. And it goes on and on. So just different, you know, all about Blues Alley and the different books, mystery novels that Blues Alley has appeared in. So I think this is going to be a super fun read to do, and it's actually going to be it's going to be fun to take these walks. I'm not real familiar with these mysteries, but I think that the walk is going to be awesome, and the descriptions of them are so cool that'll be fun. Plus, I may figure out a few mystery books that I want to get on a future TBR. because it's a genre I've not read a lot in, but I do enjoy them. So yeah, Peg, thank you so much for gifting me this book. It's going to come in really handy this summer. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I maybe I'll do some walking tour videos and come down to DC and join me when you can. All right, so then on Sunday, February the 11th, at Politics and Prose, I met up with Peg, the book prize addict, was at this book release, as well as Rachel Morrow. Rachel Morrow has a channel. I just learned about her channel, but she is a writer, and she actually, that's her in the front there. The book there that we're holding up is the District Lines Anthology. This is volume 5. This is published by the local independent bookstore Politics and Prose, which is a Washington, D.C. Fixture, landmark, independent bookstore that's also a cultural hub, a community cultural hub. And Rachel had a short story published in this year's anthology, and her short story is called Quarter Life. I have read this. There's the District Lines. Let me just turn to it. She signed, this is her short story, which she signed for me. Quarter Life by Rachel Morrow. Quarter life is like a quarter life crisis as opposed to a midlife crisis. So in this short story, a young woman is coming to terms with our struggles, I think, to let go of her past and start a new era in her life. And it's got a wonderful last paragraph. I love the last sentence. Loved it. So great job, Rachel. I haven't read a lot of the other stuff in here yet. I've read a little bit of it. I'll be doing some side reading of this. This has selections of fiction, nonfiction, and poetry here in this little small anthology, all about the District of Columbia. This is published by a local independent bookstore. Really wonderful to support a community landmark like Politics and Prose, as well as local creators like these writers and poets. So yeah, that was wonderful, wonderful experience, and I'm looking forward to watching more of Rachel Morrow's channel. She does share a lot about writing because she's in a local writing group, and I understand she writes literary short fiction mostly, but looking forward to watching her channel and watching her content coming up. While I was at Politics and Prose, I don't know, do any of you all do Flipboard? Flipboard is an app on my phone that you can, it's sort of like a news gathering, a news aggregator for you. You can like input topics that you find interesting, and it'll bring you a sort of a digest of news that it finds pertaining to those topics all around the internet. And I heard on there recently, or I read on there recently, about this book, The Fearless Benjamin Lay, the Quaker dwarf who became the first revolutionary abolitionist. And this is by Marcus Rediker, and it was published last year, 2017. While I was in Politics and Prose, I remembered that I had planned to order the book. I did want to buy this book in a physical copy, and so I had planned to order it, but I thought, well, while I'm in Politics and Prose, I'll just see on the offhand chance maybe they have this, and they did, so I decided to support my local indie bookstore and buy this there. Just a blurb about what this is about. This character just sounds, it's a historical figure. It says here, renowned historian Marcus Rediker chronicles the transatlantic life and times of a singular man, a Quaker dwarf who demanded the total unconditional emancipation of all enslaved Africans around the world. Mocked and scorned by his contemporaries, Lay was unflinching in his opposition to slavery, often performing colorful guerrilla theater to shame slave masters, insisting that human bondage violated the fundamental principles of Christianity. He drew on his ideals to create a revolutionary way of life, one that embodied the proclamation, no justice, no peace. It says here, his worldview was an astonishing combination of Quakerism, vegetarianism, animal rights, opposition to the death penalty, and abolitionism. It's my understanding that he he wouldn't wear wool. He only wore linen because he wouldn't wear wool because of the animal exploitation, and he wouldn't wear cotton because of the slave trades. Slavery supported the cotton industry, and so he was vegan way before his time. And he was such a radical abolitionist among the Quakers, from my understanding, just this from the article that I read, not this book, so take that with a grain of salt, but that he was so radical that at one point, I think he was kicked out of a Quaker meeting, and you had to be pretty radical for the Quakers to kick you out, but he was just unswavering in his opposition to slavery, and this is pretty early on, I think published before, was an abolitionist before in the early 18th century, when well before the more mainstream abolition movement of the 19th century came around. So he was a person well ahead of his time. I'm going to be really tempted to not veer off of my priority reading path and give this a interruption read. That might yet happen. I'm just really itching to dive into this biography of this really interesting person. I have actually seen this portrait. This portrait's on display at the National Portrait Gallery. I didn't know who it was at the time, but you can tell it's sort of an unusual looking portrait, and so it stuck out in my memory as having seen it. But I'll need to go back down and revisit that. So yeah, I wound up with 3 books over the weekend, 3 physical books that I bought. I met a couple of great booktubers that I hope to interact with more in the future. Rachel, you're local here, so I hope we can get together maybe and do some bookish sort of things maybe in the future. And Peg, if you're ever back in DC, as well as any other booktubers who live in the DC area or who travel here, or not just booktubers maybe, but also commenters, send me an email. If I'm free, I'd love to meet up and have a chat. So hope to do that more in the future. I think I will stop the chat with that. I am almost finished with the library at night, so I will have a chat coming up on that very soon. And I have an opera this weekend, the Midsummer Night's Dream by Benjamin Britten. I'll be seeing that opera this weekend, so there will be an opera chat following that, probably up sometime maybe next weekend, maybe Sunday or Monday. So stay tuned for that. Until then, take care. Bye.